Mahler and Mendelssohn.
Mozart, Beethoven, Tchaikovsky.
Debussy. Love me some Debussy.
Mozart, Beethoven, Brahms.
Schubert. Amen.
Female composers.
I zero. I've got nothing. I just heard of one who's still alive. I can't, which is terrible. It's horrible. I'm a singer.
Welcome everyone. My name is Laura Colgate and I am the co-founder and artistic and executive director of Boulanger Initiative.
Hi, I'm Joy Leilani Garbett. I'm the other co-founder of Boulanger Initiative, and we are beyond excited to be welcoming you to the official launch of the Boulanger Initiative database. This day has been a long time coming, and we are so glad that you're here to share it with us.
We are going to take you through a tour of the database, show you how it works, how to best use it, tell you a little bit about its history, and then we will do a Q&A at the end. So if you have questions, please put them in the comment section and we will get to those at the very end of the hour. We are going to tell you a little bit about Boulanger Initiative first and our mission. Boulanger Initiative advocates for women and all gender marginalized composers. We foster inclusivity and representation to expand and enrich the collective understanding of what music is, has been, and can be. We promote music composed by women through performance, education, research, consulting, and commissions. For this special occasion, we have some new merchandise items in our Etsy store for pre-order. So if you haven't checked those out, we have an amazing Great Composers Throughout History poster and a Boulanger Sisters poster available by the amazing Chelsea Hill. So you can go check those out and put a little women composer love on your walls.
You're going to be learning a lot more about what the database is and what it does today. But I just want to give you a quick description of what we believe it can do. It is our premier open access resource. It's designed for everyone: musicians, performers, conductors, students, researchers, educators, artistic administrators, and anyone with a curious mind. This database provides access to thousands of works by women and gender marginalized composers. And by sharing this knowledge and resources, BID increases access to works by underrepresented composers, empowering all who wish to diversify classical music programming. I also want to take just a moment and explain what we mean when we use the word or the phrase gender marginalized. We get a lot of questions about that, like who is this for? Who does this include? Who does it represent? And when we say gender marginalized, what we mean is Composers who are women, trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming, anywhere on the gender spectrum, and anyone that has been specifically and historically left out of structures of privilege and power built by the patriarchy. I'm also going to say a little bit about why we wanted to build this database and why we think it's so important to have this as a resource. From the founding of Boulanger Initiative, Laura and I really wanted to make a difference in the representation, or I should say underrepresentation at the time, of composers that we were seeing in our field. The lack of gender equity in the field was something that was really astounding to us. We also knew from experience how time-consuming it was to locate and access music by underrepresented composers. Not everyone has this time. Equitable programming just takes more time and more resources, and we wanted to do something to make this more available to people. We also knew that lots of individuals were already doing great work in their fields for their specific instruments. Laura had been doing wonderful research on music for the violin, and I had done a body of research on music for the organ. And we wanted a place to collect all of this information so that others could benefit from it. And so this became a starting point for just this collection of knowledge and the real initiative to want to share it with others.
Yeah, so we came up with the concept and then we had to figure out how to actually do it. We started with an amazing colleague, Lisa Shiota, as our database director. And this was almost 4 years ago now. And Lisa opened up a Google spreadsheet and put in a piece by Lily Boulanger. And that was how it all began. We went through the process of figuring out which fields, how we wanted to search, what we wanted to be searchable. Where do you start with something of this size? And Lisa brought on Jessica Grimmer as an assistant, and then they started bringing on interns and volunteers who would go in and research and fill out one field at a time until it has gotten to the point now where it is more than 8,000 works by over 1,200 composers. So thousands and thousands of hours have gone into this. Lisa got a new job and had to leave Boulanger Initiative. And we brought on Ashley Killam, who you'll meet in a little bit, as the database director last year in 2022. And Ashley oversaw dozens and dozens of interns and volunteers, and the Google spreadsheet was transferred to Airtable, which is what we use on the back end. And we are going to give shout outs to everybody and introduce you to people as we go. But first, I really want to introduce the team on the ground right here, right now. You've met Joy and myself, who co-founded Boulanger Initiative, but you are going to meet the rest of the team, Brian, Emily, Ashley, and Olivia. And while they're coming on stage, I'm going to tell you who's working behind the screen right now. We have Derek Goad, who is our head of marketing, who is the one putting up all the links and sharing everything. Hannah Kolarik, who is our operations manager behind the screen, helping with all of that. And Megan DeGiorgio, who is the head of education advancement on the team. So I just wanted to run through and have everybody introduce themselves, starting with Brian.
Sure, thank you, Laura. So hi, everybody. My name is Brian Young, and I'm a board member here at Boulanger Initiative. Have been for a few years now. I'm also the head of the database committee, so was involved very closely in what you're going to be seeing today. I'm also a bassoon player, and so I'm just very thrilled to have learned about all the new, to me, pieces that are in the database, and I'm really excited to be part of the team.
Hi, I'm Emily Morin, and I'm BI's current database director. I started at BI as an intern a couple of years ago, research intern, and have been involved in the public build of the database as a communications liaison. And I'm really passionate about technology for access to information and social impact, and I'm very excited about this project.
I'm Ashley Killam. I am BI's former Director of Research. I spent all of last year working with a bunch of interns and building up the database and giving a bunch of presentations on inclusive programming and how we think about music.
Sorry, Olivia, just 1 second. I'm having trouble hearing you. Can everybody else hear her? Okay, well, while Olivia is figuring out what the tech issue is, I'm going to try to say what Olivia was just saying, I think. Olivia was just saying, Olivia is the head of our Redefining the Canon program, which we'll tell you a little bit about later. Olivia, are you there? Can we hear you yet? Try speaking.
Hello, hello.
Haha, there we go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Olivia. I'm the Redefining the Canon program director, and I am a violinist and orchestral librarian. I'm very excited about this database because it'll really help with inclusive programming, as well as redefining the canon in terms of audition excerpts and helping people find inclusive excerpts for orchestral auditions.
Yeah, and I think Brian and Emily are going to talk a little bit about building the public search interface now and how that all got started and happened.
Sure, absolutely. I'm happy to talk about that a little bit, Laura. So as I mentioned before, BI formed, Laura and Joy formed a database committee a few years ago. And that committee was made up of folks that are local to the community, folks that are experts in databases and in music and in all the things that are necessary to build a successful database product. And we got together for a series of meetings where we brainstormed about what this should be, how we could make it accessible and inclusive and informative. And we came up with a design and a set of requirements. And then we started working with the BI team to bring it into practice. And I have to say that my part of it, I'm a technologist as well, so my part of it was on some of the front end, but behind the scenes, the BI staff was putting together all of the wonderful data and digging into the research. And I'll turn it over to Emily to talk a little bit about some of the work that we did once the committee was done with its work.
Right. So after that committee phase and involving the BI team with the development team in the building phase of the public search interface, we were really trying to connect that data behind the scenes in our Airtable base to something that would be accessible and intuitive and easy to use. And so we were trying to figure out how to not only best present that data, but also to organize the searching and filtering and address some of those quirks and bugs that come up along the way, and continually just get feedback from the BI team and others to just have additional eyes and getting those finishing touches ready for the launch, knowing that this is going to be an ongoing effort. And that just brings us to where we are right now.
We have so many people to thank for this project. We're so grateful to everyone that you see here on our team. And we've defined this project for many years as an iceberg project, where what people can see and what people know about is just a tiny, tiny amount of a vast number of hours and work that went in to build this. So we just offer our heartfelt gratitude to everyone who contributed time and energy and thought to this project that we are just so excited to release into the world. And I do want to especially thank the database committee. These people gave their time and wonderful ideas, and Brian, Lenore, Sarah, David, Lisa, and Jessica, just specifically a huge thank you.
And I am going to be thanking everyone who started from the initial research building from that very first Google spreadsheet. The initial research, the Airtable design, Lisa Shioda, who was our original director of database research, and Jessica Grimmer, who worked as an assistant for about 1.5 years, and then Ashley Killam, who's here on stage with us, and Emily Morin, who is also here on stage with us, who have all had a huge part in making this happen.
And I just wanted to thank all of the interns. A lot of these names, some of these names are from before I was there when Lisa was still here, but a lot of these names were people from all around the world who joined me in researching composers and pieces and getting those works added. It was a lot of painstakingly small, detailed work, but everyone did a fantastic job, and I had a great time working with them.
And the web application development. Shepherd Moon LLC is the one that has been designing our database in the background, taking everything from our Airtable and making it look like you see it in the database that's accessible from our website now. And these are all of the people, especially Brian and Jason and Kevin. They have spent the last 1.5 to 2 months tirelessly working to get all the quirks out and the bugs and make sure that it runs smoothly. And there's still going to be things along the way, and we hope that you help us find some of those so that we can make it run as perfectly and smoothly as possible. Perfect is never going to happen, but as smoothly and efficiently as possible. And I also just want to mention there's so many people who have done so much work, and it's impossible to thank everyone. So if you haven't seen your name up here and you've been a part of it, please let us know. We want to give you a special shout out in case we've missed anybody. And then we also want to thank our sponsor, Sphinx Organization, without whom this would not be possible. They sponsored the database as part of the Music Inclusion Hub, which I will get into a little bit later, but a huge shout out to Sphinx and a thank you to them for their support. And I think Emily is going to talk about the database itself and give you first looks and tell you how it works and what it does and what it is.
All right, thanks, Laura. So if we can go ahead and move to the next slide, here are the main points about being curious in the BI database. And I think even a slide further is where we start to see some of those. Perfect, thank you. So just knowing that the database as it is right now is just meant to be really a jumping off point for you to really explore all of these composers and their music, and not necessarily a comprehensive source of information. We definitely encourage everyone to check out all of the linked resources that we've been able to find and put up on the public database search. So our current emphasis really is on finding works for performance and making them as accessible as possible for whatever purpose you're trying to use them for, whether that's performing your own concert, curating a concert, bringing a new composer or style of music into your classroom if you're an educator, or looking for inspiration for maybe a new commission. So really, spanning as many historical periods and style periods as possible, and as many types of compositions and instruments and voice types. And for now, we are only including non-living composers as of this launch, and Joy will speak in a moment about why that is. And I think if we go to the next slide, I can tell you what we do have included for now. So in the composer search, there are two main searches. There's a composer search and a work search, as you can see in the live version of the database right now. In the composers, you can filter by birth and death date ranges. There are also countries and US states for composers that have a connection to the United States. So you can filter by those also. There are links to each composer's works when we've been able to find them in that Works tab of the database. And then there are also, for many composers, informative websites and biographical websites and scholarly articles, as well as Wikipedia articles that are linked to as many composers as we've been able to find them for. And in the Works Search tab, there are ranges for the years in which works were published. We have the most recent publication dates available. The durations of pieces, you can also slide back and forth to filter for those. We can link back to the composer's search under the composer's name for a work. You can filter by instrumentations, composer types, composition types, the publishers of the scores, languages for works that have song or spoken texts, and then whether or not a publisher or recording is available for a given work. And so when you have your search results, you'll be able to see links to both physical and digital scores, WorldCat library records, recordings, and videos. And now I'll turn it over to Joy, who will talk about what's coming in the future.
Thank you, Emily. We are just delighted with what this database already is and what it offers, but we know it's just our first iteration. So there's going to be a lot more coming. And one of the biggest areas for growth that we want to offer is living composers. As Emily mentioned, right now, everyone in the database is no longer alive, and there are many active composers that we would like to include along with their works. So that's something that will be coming in the future. Another thing that we'd like to offer in terms of research and information for all of the composers where applicable and when it's possible is archival collections for those composers and where they're located. And I also just want to say a word about what's not represented currently in the database that people might want to search for or look for, and that's race and ethnicity, gender identity, pronouns. And there are reasons that we haven't included those, particularly for composers that are no longer alive and whose identity we cannot ask. We have not assigned labels to anyone. When we have living composers that are self-identifying and letting us know how they would like to be represented and what they would like included in their information, we will absolutely do that. But there are sources can be problematic in terms of some of these identity labels. And so we have just opted to not include those at this time for the database. And Laura is going to tell us a little bit more about what's coming in terms of works searches.
So in terms of the other tab, when you go to search for different works, as Joy mentioned, we will have living composers and works by living composers once they can see the database and give their consent and we can make sure that they're represented how they want to be. Then we will also be adding a few other things for works, including difficulty levels, the shorthand for orchestra instrumentation. If you program something for an orchestra and you know that you have specific instrumentation, that will make it so much easier and more efficient to search for specific pieces for specific large ensemble instrumentation. Works search by descriptive text and thematic tag. So if you are curating a program with a springtime theme, that you can type in the word spring, which you can do now, but it'll be a field of its own in the future. Digital scores only or physical scores only. So if there are digital scores and even if there's a physical score, but it's half a world away and it takes 6 months to get to you and you want to play it next week, then you'll be able to see if there's a digital score available that you can download and purchase online. And then again, manuscript archive locations for unpublished works by deceased composers. So a lot of deceased composers have collections in one place or another. So to be able to have a field that you can see, if I want to see all of these composers' works, where can I go to see the manuscripts and their collections and that kind of thing. So we're excited for all of those things to get added and be public in the future. And I think we are going to start the guided tour now. So you can see the database for yourself, see how it works, and we're going to take you on a few little example searches, and we will start with Emily. So I will let you take over and come on the stage.
Thanks, Laura. And I think at this point, we can go ahead and switch from the slideshow to share the database. There it is. And this is live on our website as of right now. And as you can see, we have the Composers tab open right now and a search bar there and a lot of filters that appear on the left. And then as you scroll down the page, you can see there are search results under that first banner to start showing you all of the composers with none of the filters on yet. So let's say that I am looking, I'm on this database looking for a piano concerto. When I first introduced myself, I neglected to mention that I play the piano. So I'm going to go ahead and explore what piano concertos are in here. So go ahead and click on that Works tab because that is where I would like to start. So to start looking for a piano concerto, I think I'm going to first filter for my instrument. So if we scroll down about halfway down the page, you'll see an instrumentation area, and go ahead and click on that, search all instruments. And in here, there's a drop down, but I'm going to go ahead and type piano in that search because it's just alphabetically further down, and can go ahead and click piano. And that will instantly apply a piano filter. You can see there's over 5,600 works that have piano at all. So I'm going to need to narrow it down a little bit more. If you scroll further down the filters, you can see a composition type under the instruments. So right in that first set of checkboxes is actually the concerto type. And so we can click that to filter for concertos. In those results, you can see that there are concertos for other solo instruments that have orchestral reductions for piano, which is not quite what I'm looking for, but it's often a lot easier to find these piano reductions than scores for full orchestra and a soloist by gender marginalized composers. So we have a lot of those in there that have orchestral reductions and also links to maybe a manuscript of the full score. But to try to get at really the goal of my search, I'm going to go back to the instrumentation filter and go ahead and search for orchestra in there so that orchestra is specifically viewable in the results as well as piano. And then you can see that there are piano and orchestra results that come up. And if you scroll all the way to the top, actually, I want to see how many I can see. So 27 works found. And I'm going to go ahead and say, let's show 25 per page so that I can see almost all of them on that first page. I like to be lazy and not have to scroll through a lot of pages. So now there are 25. And let's go ahead and scroll down through a lot of these works, and I can see all of the details by a lot of different composers. You'll notice that there are not always a lot of links under each one or a lot of details. There's a real variety as to what we've been able to find, and a lot of variety in the titling and the other like durations and years of publications. And I think I'm going to see if there's anything by Germaine Taillefer further down the page. So let's go all the way, or almost all the way down. Yeah, so there are these two piano and orchestra pieces by her. And let's go ahead and under the concerto for piano and orchestra, we'll click on the publisher score link. And that will open in a new tab and show me this page with score access. And I can see that it's only available to hire on this page, but it does give me a few of those details about the work. If we navigate back to the database and click on the online video, we can see a preview and listen to a preview of it, at least for a few seconds. Beautiful. Yeah, thank you for navigating that, Derek. It was great to listen to the beginning of that piece. Curious to hear more. Yeah, so let's move on to another search example. I'll turn it over to Brian, who has a different idea in mind.
Okay, thank you, Emily. So, like I said before, I am a bassoonist, and I'm looking for a piece that I can play with my friend who is a cellist. And so I'd love to find a composition that I don't know about. And so, Derek, if you could scroll up and stay here in the works part of the database, and maybe right at the top under where it says 27 works, you can clear out concerto, and you can clear out piano and orchestra. And let's get going with a bassoon search. Great, thank you. So what I'd love you to do is scroll down to instrumentation, and if you don't see bassoon right there in that first group of categories, you can just type bassoon into search all instruments. There it is. And before you click that, Derek, actually, if you could go back and type bassoon one more time. You'll notice that you see bassoons 2 and bassoons 4, and so what that represents in the database is pieces that have 2 bassoons or pieces that have 4 bassoons. So if I were looking for a quartet, for instance, I might click bassoons 4. But for now, let's go ahead and click bassoon. Great, thank you. And then let's also look for a cello as well. There it is. Okay, so we can see from this that there are 21 works in the database that have bassoon and cello. But you know, as Emily was finding in her search, it pulls things that have bassoon and cello and all kinds of other things as well. So why don't we go and filter this by composition type? If you scroll down, Derek, we can find a duo, and it looks like there's one duo in the database. And it's the Diaphonic Suite number 2 by Ruth Crawford Seeger, which is great. So why don't we go to the online video to check it out, see if it's something that we'd be interested in playing. And then if you want to switch over to the YouTube tab. All right, so this sounds really cool. It sounds like something I'd like to dig further into. So I wonder if we switch back over, if we can find a link to the score. And look, there's WorldCat score in parts. So why don't we click that and see what's available that I might be able to borrow, maybe. And if you switch over to that tab, there it is. We can see that it's available, and I can get it. So that shows just part of what we can do with the search on the database. And so now I think I'm not sure if we're going to turn back over to Emily or if we're going to look at some other searches.
Hi, I am so excited to try this out, and I'm an organist, and there's a French composer that I'm really interested in. So let's go back up to the top and click on composers. Thank you, Derek, for navigating this. So there's a French composer whose music I really love, but her name is very difficult to spell. So let's just try typing into this composer search box, D-E-M, and then I think it's another E and an S, and good, there it is. Okay, great. So I just wanted to show that we can, even if you don't have the exact spelling, it can get you there pretty quickly. And that's who I was looking for, Jean Damasio. So let's I know there was a church that she worked for in Paris, and I can't remember what it was called. I could click on the Wikipedia link and go there. We're going to skip that step just for time, but that is available there, and that would give me the name and her biography and lots of other information about her. Let's click now on her works list and see if I can find something that I'm looking for organ. I'm looking for a piece for a concert, and I want it to be between 7 and 10 minutes. So up on the top left, let's filter or search by duration in minutes. There's a little toggle that we can flip there. And let's put 7 as the minimum number. And see what that brings up. And if we can also put 10 as the outer limit, or 12 as the, and you can either slide that over, use the slider, or yeah, that's great. 13 minutes is fine. And let's see, scroll down and see what we have there for pieces that are 7 to 10 minutes by Demiseux. I'm curious about this Prelude and Fugue piece, and I'd like to check out the online recording and see what's available with that. That looks interesting. And if we had more time, we would listen to that online recording. And let's say I really loved that piece, and there we go. Okay, that looks like a cool recording. That was done at the church where Demiseux was the organist. So I've now listened to this piece. I want to program it, and I'm going to go back to the database and click on the publisher score so that I can order this music. And let's see what's available there. Fantastic. Add to cart. All right. Thank you so much, Derek. I think Olivia's up next.
Hello. Okay. So let's say, thank you, Joy, and thank you, Derek, as well. So let's say you are a music director, or you are a librarian like myself, and your music director is looking for a short but not too short overture, like a nice concert opener. So it looks like we're in the right tab, in the Works tab. So we're going to scroll down to instrumentation, or I think it's composition type. So scroll down to composition type, and there we are. So in the search bar, we're going to go ahead and type in overture. And there it is. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And boom, if we scroll back up to the top, looks like all the way to the top, looks like we've got about 14 pieces to pick from. But if we don't want, again, if we don't want it to be too short, we can do the same thing as Joy did earlier, and we can narrow down the duration time. So if you click on duration, and let's do 10 as the minimum number, and then 15 as the maximum number. And then, you know, it narrows it down a little bit more from there. And so now we've got some great options here. So we've got Emily Meyer's Faust Overture, and we can scroll down a little bit more and see that we've got some of Florence Price's lovely overtures to pick from as well. So to save some time, let's assume that we've listened to all of these pieces, and you've given your music director some good options to choose from if they, you know, like any of these. So I think that ends our demoing of the database. Feel free to please hop in and explore the searches and the filter options as well. Thank you so much, Derek.
Thanks, Olivia. And thanks, Derek, for helping with the demo there. If we can hop back over to the slideshow, I just want to point out a couple of companion pages that are part of the new database portion of the BI website. So a few of the ways that you can help us with this ongoing effort to make all of this music accessible. We have forms for entering works and composers who you don't see on the database yet. If you have an idea for somebody to add or a piece to add, by all means, feel free to fill those out, and we will check the responses regularly. And we are definitely always learning more and adding more as we go along. We're never done, and we'll definitely value your feedback on how well this is working for you, and in all of the ways that you're using it. If there's something that we haven't considered, we definitely want to hear about it. Or if you find any, technical issues or web accessibility kinds of issues, that's definitely good for us to know about too, and we'll address those as soon as we can. And finally, get in touch if you're interested in volunteering and contributing to the database. We'd love to have you. Let's hop ahead to the next slide because we have some help pages as well. There is an FAQ page for questions you might have about like how we define certain categories of information and metadata in the database, and what we might be thinking about for the future, as we mentioned earlier in the presentation. And then there is a guide page for just using the searches and the filters, and how to really make the most of this interface. And also a page about best practices and just some general ideas to keep in mind as you go along in using the database, and how to supplement your use of the database with some of the other offerings that we have at Boulanger, like our consulting services and education programs. And with that, I think we are going to elaborate on the best practices. So I'll turn it back over to Joy and Laura.
Amazing. Thank you, Emily. And I just saw a question in the comments about submitting composers. For now, we're only taking submissions of composers who are living. You're welcome to submit composers who are living, but we are only adding the ones to the database who are not living until we can start gathering consent from everybody who is willing to be and wants to be represented in the databases. Okay, so now we really think of the database as a starting point. As Joy was talking about earlier, when we were coming up with the concept of this, it was really a resource for saving time, because taking so much time to just find a piece by a composer or just to find a composer. And it's even different than the landscape was, what was that, 8 years ago, 9 years ago when I started this research. And there's already so many more resources available than there were when I started my dissertation process. But if I had had something like this tool, like this database, I could have spent the hours and hours and hours that I spent trying to find composers, actually learning about composers and playing their music and diving into their lives and all of this. So we at Boulanger Initiative use the database as a starting point for a whole number of programs and different things that we do and offer. So the first one I want to mention is consultations, and Hannah's behind the scene putting some links in the chat if you want to find out more about some of these things. If you are looking for a specific manuscript, or if you have a random question about a composer and want help researching, or if you are looking for a collection location, or if you want help curating an entire performance, then you can go to the page on our website and check out our consultation services. We also offer virtual presentations. I think we have still 2 more coming up later this month, and all kinds of different programs from the specific lives of specific composers, and digging more into that, and best practices, this conversation that we're having right now, how to be inclusive in the classroom. And you can go to our virtual presentations or upcoming virtual presentations page to check out what's coming up. We also offer immersive learning experiences, and we do these as single workshops and programs for schools and summer festivals and orchestras and all kinds of things, and residencies as well. So you can sort of pick and choose what your organization is looking for, and sort of design your own program. And we love coming in and exploring more. And then we were mentioned earlier, Redefining the Canon. Olivia Wren is our program director for that. And this is another massive undertaking that we have started in the past 2 years. Really talking about the pipeline issue in orchestras and trying to figure out how do we get more representation, not just from what's being played on stage and the composers, but who's actually sitting on the stage. So most of the time we have orchestra auditions and we see the same excerpts get recycled over and over and over again. And we have been building a mass list of every instrument in an orchestra that you can think of and alternative excerpts that can be played for auditions. And we want to use every person and musician and citizen artist that is willing to be a part of this, because it will take the entire field to really make a difference for this kind of change. So if you want to help out with this, if you play an instrument, you can sign up as an orchestra excerpt forager and help us forage, and we will walk you through the entire process. It's super easy. But you can check out the Redefining the Canon page to find out more information about that. And lastly, our Music Inclusion Hub. Derek, you can go to the next slide. I want to, first of all, give a huge shout out to Sphinx Organization again for sponsoring this project and supporting us. Music Inclusion Hub is a trio of organizations, Castle of Our Skins and Decomposed, who are both incredible organizations. Please go check out their work. We join forces to create a holistic suite of offerings that truly embeds and normalizes racial and gender inclusion at all grade levels. I won't read through this entire slide, but I will say that this is an offering of really taking the database as a starting point and building programs out of it. Things that educators and students and musicians can all take away, and it will all be available virtually. So this is an ongoing project for the next probably 2 years, so you can watch and see it grow as we go. So that's what we do to go beyond the database. That's how we use it as a starting point. And Joy's going to talk a little bit about other ways and how you can go beyond the database.
Yeah, one of the things we demonstrated earlier for all instrumentalists, musicians, if you're in an ensemble, you can use this as a starting point to see what's out there for your instrument, for your voice, for your group, and just to start to explore and discover and search. And then next, to learn more about the lives of the composers. So you can see what they've written, you can find out who they are. And we encourage you to come to this resource also with a bit of intentionality. If there's a particular time or place that you're interested in and you want to know what was happening there musically, you can search for that in the database. And I really encourage you to use this as a starting point for your own advocacy. If there's a composer whose works you would like to hear performed, please take that to your local arts organization. Please ask for this music from the musicians that are in your lives. And also, don't stop at the surface. As I mentioned, this is our first iteration. This is the first version that we're offering with everything that we could think of to get started. But please use this as your own jumping off point for all of the other resources that it will lead you to and that you can search through from there. One thing that I wanted to mention just from my initial research was how often it was difficult to really know who the composer was, because the music would be published with the first initial. J. Boulez is one example. And so from initially seeing her scores, I didn't know who she was. I didn't know anything about her. And you can use this as a quick way to check, just, are they in this database? Is this someone that I want to know more about for diversifying my programming? But most of all, we're just so curious to see how you will use this and where it will go from here. And I know that it is a collective effort and a knowledge pooling effort. So please continue to share with us so that we can continue to share with others, and we can really make this an expansive and ongoing project.
Amazing.
Laura?
Thank you, Joy. And I want to give a shout out to whoever pointed out that one of the links wasn't working. It should be working now. All of the help links are fixed and should be active. So thank you for pointing that out to us. One more time, I want to mention our new merchandise. If you need some wall decorations, we have multiple posters and we have an amazing alphabet composer. You can see it behind me, with a companion booklet. And there's a page for each composer and there with a listening link at the end so that you can actually go and listen to their music. And it's a great way to expand your classroom, or your home or your piano studio. So go check out our Etsy store and support us by showing your love on your walls.
We can move to the next slide, Derek, and I just want to thank everyone who has already donated and supported this effort and all of the work that we're doing. We are a nonprofit organization. We rely heavily on support of generous donors and funders and organizations, and we encourage gifts at every level. So if you have been inspired by what you have seen today and you would like to help us continue to do that work, one of the ways, there are many ways you can support this work, but one of the ways is to click on the donate button on our website and give us support in that way.
Absolutely. And Q&A. So if you have, there's a lot of comments in here. So if you have put a question in there that I haven't answered, if you want to drop it in again, and Derek, if you could bring everybody out on stage, the whole team, and we will try to get some questions answered. It can be about the database specifically. It can be about Boulanger Initiative. It can be about a woman composer. Anything that you have so far? Okay. I've been trying to find out for a week if there are any definitively known trans or non-binary composers currently listed. I was told that would be answered here. Are there any? Thank you, Eris. And Emily, Emily's going to answer that, but first I'll say that a lot of times the sources where we find these answers are problematic. And unless we have talked to someone ourselves, we don't want to speak for them. But there are sources that have this information. And until we can, in the database, include where we found information like this, which is, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, a little bit of a technical mastery that takes a little bit more time and a lot of specific tech skills that we have not yet conquered. But Emily, if you want to talk about what's in the database currently.
Yeah, so as Laura mentioned, the information that we're able to find about non-living composers spanning back hundreds of years really varies in its level of detail and specificity and reliability when it comes to how these composers identified. And so at this point, we do not have composers that we know of as being identified as non-binary or trans currently. And this is something that is going to be an ongoing focus of our research team as we continue to just seek out reliable sources of information and really not speculate on anyone's gender identity as we add that to a resource that we hope will be reliable for our community. I hope that answers your question.
Anybody else? And I see a comment from Audrey. It is always helpful to link directly to the music. Often with historical composers, the source material isn't engraved, which can make it more difficult to perform with an orchestra. It makes it sometimes impossible. There is on the database, there's a little filter that you can push that says unpublished. So you can see the pieces and works that have not yet been published. If you are an engraver, this is your candy store. Have a field day. And that is also something that BI really wants to be able to tackle on a larger scale. will also say, even with published scores and parts, a lot of times it is not done with the same attention to detail and intentionality that we often see. You know, there's how many editions of the Beethoven Opus 18 string quartets. And there's books and books and articles about each edition and who did it and how they did it and all of this. So for us to be able to really dive deep and get some great editions out there, I think this will be a starting point for that as well. Is there a public issue page for technical issues relating to the database? Aha, Brian and Emily, this is where you take over.
Sure. I will say that part of the question was about GitHub. No, there isn't one of those, but there is a link. If you go to the top of the database page under database info, there is a report an issue form. And I'm not sure we've talked about kind of keeping the issues and the resolutions public, but that's definitely something that I think is on the roadmap to think about. But for now, if there's an issue, please use that link at the top, database info, report an issue.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, and we are at 3:58, almost to the end of the hour. It really looks like there are a lot of questions about how to get things into the database or submit things, or what's coming in the future, how we plan on doing things, process, that kind of thing. Please send us those questions our way, and we are happy to answer them as they come. We hope that people help us find bugs and things that need to be edited or updated or all of that. And with all of us together, we can do this work much more quickly. So please fill out the submit a work or composer form or the feedback form or report a bug form if you're finding anything. And is there anything else from the team that I've forgotten before we do our goodbyes? I think, okay. Thank you all so much for coming and joining us today. I want to again thank everybody who has contributed so much time and work and energy and sweat and tears have gotten into building this database. And every single person deserves a massive gratitude from the BI team. So thank you all.
I just want to offer my thanks to everyone on the team as well, and especially to all of you who tuned in to celebrate this really exciting moment with us. And I want to thank you for your ongoing patience and generosity and support as we continue to grow and build this. We know it's going to be an ongoing project, and where it is now isn't where it will stay, but we're just so happy to finally have it out there.
Amazing. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the database. Go do amazing things with it. And stay in touch with us by subscribing to the newsletter. And we will see you around. Thanks for coming.